Hey everyone, welcome to our first video about photosynthesis. This week you'll be getting 3 videos about photosynthesis. The first one will talk about what is photosynthesis. The second one will focus on the chloroplast, which is where photosynthesis happens. And the third one will talk about the scientists who helped us understand this process of photosynthesis. So here we go. All right. This is kind of a basic diagram. You might have seen something like this in middle school, 7th grade, something like that. But anyway, let's just review real quick. What goes into photosynthesis and what comes out? So this little sunshine here represents light energy. These molecules here, they're kind of big. They represent carbon dioxide, or CO2 is the chemical formula. Down here, these aren't very good representations of water, but they're blue and they are in the soil, and so you can know that they are water. In reality, it would have 3 parts, 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. All right, and then those are all the things that come into photosynthesis, and let's talk about what comes out. Up here is a gas that is released by photosynthesis, and we're pretty lucky that that gets released by photosynthesis because we actually breathe it in. That's oxygen gas. And then down here, do you remember from macromolecules, what is a ring shape structure? It's glucose, C6H12O6, and that's sugar. And plants produce that type of sugar, and we eat plants to get that type of sugar. So this is kind of interesting. The things that come out of photosynthesis, oxygen and oxygen and C6H12O6, which is glucose, those are things that we need in order to survive, and we'll talk about them more next week during cell respiration. But let's take a little deeper dive into photosynthesis. So what is photosynthesis? Well, it is a process where plants and certain other organisms, but mostly plants, will use light energy, you can see that here, to convert water and carbon dioxide into oxygen and a high energy carbohydrate that we call glucose. And those glucose molecules can actually bind together to form starches. So we know that starch is a polymer of our monosaccharides. The monosaccharide is the monomer and the polysaccharide is the polymer. So anyway, how does this process happen? Well, there's actually a chemical equation for it. It's CO2, carbon dioxide, plus H2O, which is water, plus some light energy, which we showed in our diagram, gives you glucose, which is a C6H12O6. That means there are 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens, plus O2 gas, which is just oxygen gas. This happens in 2 steps. So the first step is called the light-dependent reactions. That's over here and shown right here. And what happens there is that light energy and water come in to the thylakoid, which is part of the chloroplast. By the way, this is all taking place in the chloroplast. So light energy and water come into the thylakoid of the chloroplast, and out of that comes oxygen, which you can see here, and some energy molecules, ATP and NADPH. Then coming up next, it's the Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle involves some carbon dioxide gas coming in and some of those energy molecules, ATP and NADPH, that were made in the light-dependent reactions. And that helps with this thing called the Calvin cycle. And it's basically a cycle of carbon where carbon is changed from the carbon dioxide gas into C6H12O6, which is glucose. Some people call them the dark reactions or the light independent reactions. The Calvin cycle actually can take place during the daytime or nighttime. It doesn't require light energy because the energy it's using is from ATP. But it's also known as the Calvin cycle based on the scientist who discovered it. So overall, when we're talking about photosynthesis, we have light reactions that use light energy and water to produce oxygen and ATP energy. And then we have our light independent reactions, our Calvin cycle, which uses some of that ATP and NADPH energy, uses carbon dioxide, and then produces sugar or glucose. Thanks for listening.